Hey everybody, it's the Mad Master here. I'm doing a video today because I just couldn't be not compelled into jumping into the fray of this whole controversy with the Rings of Power series, which I will never watch more than likely because I'm just not interested in it. So I'm just going to go into some of what I think about this controversy and how it reflects upon what's going on in the world right now. So you have these two polar opposite sides, you know, as usual, like with Ghostbusters 2016, it's just like a continuation of this culture war thing. There's people denying that there's anything, you know, conniving about how they set up this whole series and all this stuff, like, oh, you know, and you have the other side that are saying that there's an agenda, and, you know, they're showing examples of it on YouTube and stuff like that. And I'm just like, I'm just so sick of this bullshit. Just like, for one, I think a lot of these people that are attacking it should find a different strategy or route of attacking these things. Now, for one, it's Amazon, or another thing is it's Amazon, which is, you know, a corporate behemoth of garbage, you know, literal garbage, like all the packaging they use. I mean, Bill Maher had this clip about, you know, malls and like buying stuff from retail, which was pretty ingenious. Like, Bill Maher has a lot of bad boomer neoliberal takes, but this one was actually one of his better ones. Sometimes I actually like Bill Maher to some extent, especially the last few years for some of his opinions, of course, as people would not be surprised by. But some of his takes are total cringe, neoliberal bullshit too. But so we have this huge corporation that's, you know, essentially Sauron. You know, Jeff Bezos is Sauron because, you know, look at his labor practices. You know, all this shit made by, you know, horrible labor in the third world. You know, I mean, not horrible labor, like really badly paid, you know, essentially probably some like slave-like conditions, or at least close to it, you know, some of these factories and stuff out there, and horrible, you know, horrible societies that manufacture all your shit that you buy from Amazon. And I'm guilty because I shop at Amazon. I'm going to probably try to stop, but you have that, and you have the environmental destruction that Amazon, you know, creates. And that, I mean, basically that draws to mind a certain fictional character from a Tolkien novel called Sauron. You know, you had the factory, or not factories, but like all this dark smoke and polluted kind of stuff. You know, I don't know if it was like the Industrial Revolution, and Tolkien was talking about that, you know, or something like that within the books, the allegories and stuff about that. Well, yeah, you have all that, and then you know, these people, these liberals that are defending this series. I'm just like, have you taken a look at yourself lately? Like, you're defending this thing, and for sure, like some of the trolls on the other side, they might be a little racist or whatever. I'm sure there's some people that are like, oh well, you know, and then they're trying to like rewrite history about Tolkien and all this stuff, which is really stupid too. And then I guess there's some lore in the Tolkien world in Middle Earth that they could have had more diverse characters, like in some other continent or something. And Actual Justice Warrior was talking about that in one of his videos. So you have all this huge culture war nonsense, and yet again going on with regards to this franchise. And I'm just like, what is it going to end? I mean, you know how we end it is by ignoring it. You know, ignore these stupid things and make them a failure. The worse, the more you talk about it, and I'm not less guilty with this video. The more you talk about this bullshit, the more people are going to watch. It's just like the old P.T. Barnum kind of, you know, theories, or Ryan, what's his name, Ryan Holiday's kind of theories about, you know, sensationalistic, you know, attention-seeking capitalism. You know, it's the reason why Trump is still a factor, is because the media talks about him all the time, regardless if it's negative or positive. I mean, some of the best PR you can get is negative, you know, people say. So why even go into paying attention to this shit? And another thing, you know, that bothers me is people always assume that because you are a fan of something, then you can have no right to complain because, oh, we're going towards this progressive future with these franchises, and you have to just eat the that's not the right word. Eat the crap that we're giving you, because it's gonna be better for society if we do this. It's like we keep raping these old franchises. What do you expect people to say? Someone that grew up with Terminator is not going to want John Connor to die in the first 10 minutes of a movie. Someone that grew up with He-Man is not going to want the same thing for his male, you know, beloved male character. So people have legitimate complaints about this. This is happening all over, you know, these franchises, which are just being totally exploited. People didn't want Luke Skywalker to die. They didn't want He-Man to die, and they didn't want John Connor to die, to all be replaced by females. How about making a movie, a science fiction movie, with a female protagonist? Oh, well, Alien comes to mind, you know? It's like the lack of creativity is what people should be attacking as well, because it's like, okay, you're going to take all this shit and try to make it like a Game of Thrones kind of show, which, ironically, a lot of conservatives I see talking about the new Game of Thrones like it's like this miracle, like almost like controlled opposition, like Elon Musk versus the woke crowd, like version of the you know, fantasy series. It's kind of ridiculous, but you know, it is what it is. But I don't really see this this whole dichotomy has just got to end. You know, we've got to stop just paying attention to this shit. I mean, it's fun to watch all these videos about, oh, this new woke version of an old franchise. You know, it's like, and of course the media is denying that that's the case, or saying it's, you know, you're a horrible person, a human being, if you oppose our new, you know, slop that we're feeding you, you know, our big corporate slop, you know. And, you know, there's a lot of good things that are coming out. That's the irony. The Northman was a great movie. It has nothing to do with the character, you know, the racial characteristics of characters. You know, there's all sorts of A24 movies. There's all sorts of movies that are still sort of woke that are actually good. You know, there's all sorts of things going on. And these old franchises, it's like these huge corporate beasts will take a franchise and just rape it and destroy it, you know, burn it to the ground and make it just shitty. That's what's going on with a lot of this stuff. So I just think it's really misguided to obsess about it in any way. But you know, it's just like the remake boom of the mid-2000s. It's like, does anybody truly remember the Total Recall reboot or the RoboCop reboot, or any of these movies that come out, Black Christmas, you know, three different versions? I don't know. You know, people don't remember that shit. They remember the original. Nobody watches Nightmare on Elm Street, the remake, you know? So, I mean, and it used to be more like that when we didn't have this level of involvement from people that are, you know, questioning these things. Honestly, like, just ignore it. Let it go. The hype, you know, it's such propaganda when Amazon runs these ads on Facebook all day that say 24 million viewers, whoa, we can't be wrong. It's such propaganda. It's such obvious propaganda. Now, I've been asked what I think that this whole agenda is about with regards to all these franchises, and what they're trying to do, because I know they're trying to push some certain things. I know they are, regardless of what people say. Oh, you're such a racist, sexist, homophobic, transphobe, blah, blah, blah. It's like, well, I could say that maybe I'm a little bit sexist, but, and, you know, the rest of it probably not. But yeah, I don't know. I really don't know what the answer to this is, because for one, we have plenty of franchises that are unexplored, and books and comics and all sorts of like different diverse things, you know, they could make movies out of that are really good or something like that, you know, to that extent. I mean, even The Invisibles, I think The Invisibles, Grant Morrison, there's like transgender characters in that, and that was from like the mid-90s. You know, there were black characters in all sorts of comics and stuff, and you don't have to like go back to Tolkien, who is like you know, his characters were very much based on the English, you know, the people in England, very more ethno-centric kind of population, you know, at the time, at least. You know, I mean, I'm sure there were immigrants and stuff, but, you know, at the time, that's, you know, he wasn't writing. I mean, you write about what you know, what you see. You know, you don't have to pretend that there were a bunch of, you know, African immigrants in England in the, you know, in Middle Earth time. You know, you don't have, or whatever. You know, you don't have to pretend that. You just write about what you know, what you see. I started writing a comic a few years ago, and if I came out, I'd probably be criticized, because it's all about my experiences on working at Walgreens, and like I tied into this like superhero thing, but you know, it's all about like my experiences as a young adult and stuff. And it's like I'm white. I'm not going to make him into like a transgendered communist black dwarf or something, you know, in a wheelchair, you know, just because of diversity. I'm going to make it about my life. You know, what are you going to write about? I'm going to write about what I know, you know, and obviously there's some diverse characters in it, because the street that I was working on is a diverse street. But if it wasn't, who gives a fuck, you know? And, you know, it's just, I mean, I think there's plenty of complaints to have about these characterizations, like Galadriel supposedly being a Mary Sue Karen. I mean, it's not going to stand the test of time. Look at what, I mean, and this is another thing people have to be relieved, it should be relieved about. This shit makes a whole fuckload of money, of course, but we can think about how Star Wars is viewed today, how the prequel, not the prequels, but the sequel trilogy is viewed today. Most people just think they're mediocre, they're shit, you know, depending. I mean, most people think they're at least mediocre, going to, you know, and the most, you know, mainstream people think they're mediocre, at least, or at work, and, you know, at least mediocre, if not worse. So, you know, who's going to remember that 10 years from now? You know, people are not going to be talking about, you know, Rey 20 years from now. They're going to be talking about Luke, probably, or Leia, you know. I don't know. I'm not saying that there's no value with the prequel, you know, I keep saying prequels. And you know, the revisionism about the prequels too is, I think it's just as misguided as that. It's like, no, they're not good, you know. I never liked the prequels. I don't like the sequels. I'm a purist, you know. And even with J.R.R. Tolkien, my favorite's the Ralph Bakshi's stuff from the 70s. I still like that. I just ordered the Lord of the Rings from the, you know, the animated one, because I think it's better than, I think it's in some ways better than Peter Jackson. And dare I say that, I just always liked it better. I even have like a poster from that behind the phone. So yeah, I don't think we need to worry much. Nobody cares about Ghostbusters 2016 other than like some bloggers that are rehashing the cultural battles that happened. My God, they're so sexist. They're just attacking more stuff now. Ah. You know, and who cares? You know, let them fail, because they will fail. These franchises that try to do all this stupid shit with the franchise for whatever reason, I don't know. I haven't figured it out yet. You know, I think you should have the right to write about what you know and what you're surrounded by. And if it happens to be super diverse, then it is. Then it can be. And if it's not, who cares? You know, if you live in an all white, you know, mostly white neighborhood, and you write an autobiographical novel and most of the characters are white, who gives a fuck? If you live in a diverse, like, you know, city like New York City, and then there's all sorts of weird characters and different races and genders and all sorts of stuff, then that's cool too. Who cares? Just trying to like force everything, like just like, you know, just, you know, you're trying to squeeze all these things together, you know, just like, it's just, it doesn't work, and it just makes people more mad, you know, makes people more just divided. You know, it's not working as far as what their intentions are. And they'll blame Trump people, and they'll blame, you know, 4chan or all these people. It's just so stupid. You know, if you want to write a diverse book, then write one, you know, and at least it'll be original book. You know, don't try to go back and like rewrite all this shit. You know, there was these memes on Twitter I saw the other day. And it was hilarious because they were like making these kind of like these leaps about race swapping and gender swapping, and it was really funny because they had this Anne Frank that was like played by a black girl, and like these pictures, like this Asian dude that played a, you know, some type of I don't know, it was like a white dude that played like an African king and stuff, like all these. It's just like they mixed everything up, and it just, the sheer dissonance that you saw from this, like the sheer, like, you realized how stupid people fucking with cultures and races really is. And I'm not talking about white, you know, there's plenty of whitewashing that happens in Hollywood and has over the, you know, last 100 years. There's plenty of times where it's totally cringe, you know. All these biblical movies where people were, you know, totally white, you know, all the time. You watch all these movies, or the Akira movie or whatever they were going to make, or did they make it? I don't even know, with, you know, Charlize Theron or Scarlett Johansson or whatever. It's like, yeah, I know anime doesn't really look, you know, the people don't look super Asian all the time, but it's just stupid, you know. If you're going to make an anime movie, make it with Asian actors. Not always, you know, you don't always have to do that. I'm going to be like a little more like Bill Maher, because if you're playing a fucking, just like Tom Hanks's stupid comment about he wouldn't play in Philadelphia today or whatever. Fuck you, you know. By the way, I heard his son is a big time red-pilled conspiracy guy, but that's all another story for another time. But yeah, these stupid movies and these stupid remakes and reboots, and, you know, just pissing on the old culture and stuff. It's just, it's pretty sad. And I'm coming from a place, my place is probably, I would say the place that I come from with this is probably the best position to be in, because I just don't care enough. And obviously I'm doing a long video about this, but I just don't usually care enough to even check this shit out, you know, because I already have all the old books or all the old movies or whatever, because I'm not a fan of them. I'd rather see something new, right? Like, some of my favorite movies of the last 10 years are all these like A24 horror movies, you know? I mean, or Babadook, or, you know, things like that, or yeah, just various movies that, you know, even like Hereditary was good. I liked that, and I liked The Lighthouse and The Northman, and, you know, movies like that, or The Witch, you know, things like that. Or even, dare I say, Midsummer. I know a lot of people hated that, but I liked that too, even though it was kind of a twist on the Wicker Man a little bit. But the original Wicker Man, why not just watch that, you know? Watch the original, watch the old movies, you know, nothing wrong with that. You know, you know, sometimes they'll race swap things or whatever, like this BBC Dracula series, you know. I mean, there's a few race swapped characters in there, and it was fine. But obviously when they try to make this fucking, they've tried to just like force feed this whole thing, it gets really over the top and quite annoying and cringe. And that's how it works with these franchises. And people are not made better by being forced to watch or listen to this drivel. That, and I'm not talking about my videos, by the way. I'm sure some trolls will say that, but if they've even watched this far. But yeah, it's just stupid. And I don't really care. I like what I like. You know, if there's something new that I like, I'll like it, you know. I never got into Harry Potter because it reminded me of the Books of Magic by Neil Gaiman. You know, I'm like, fuck Harry Potter. I always said that. I bought a book, you know, a couple of years ago. I haven't read it yet, but I'm just like, yeah, that's not, I just don't care. I like what I like. I'll read something else, you know. I just ignore most of what's coming out anyways, you know, other than select things. And I think that's the best way to be. Like I said, it's like, you don't have to be so like caught into this thing. And I know the nerd culture is, you know, I hang out with a lot of nerds, so, and I'm kind of a nerd, but I'm not really like, I don't suck up all the Marvel movies and all that shit. I just never cared. I'd rather read, you know, I'd rather find an old, like, obscure Chris Claremont graphic novel of X-Men that not a lot of people talk about or something, and then read that, or an old Epic Comics or Image Comics or whatever. I'd rather do that than spend the time watching some bloated ass fucking Marvel movie, you know? That's how I feel. And if I want to see a movie, it's going to have to be something original, not something that's been around, you know, not some 40 or 50 year or 60 year, dare I say, like X-Men franchise. Fuck that. I'd rather see something new. The stories have already been told in X-Men and, you know, all these things. So who cares? You know, that's what I like to do. I just don't care, you know. I like to see, I like when they do twists and stuff on old franchises sometimes, but it's just, you know, it's gotten to be pretty objectionably, I'm trying to think of the word, but, you know, it's just, it's awful. And I don't know what the new direction is going to be for all this stuff. But I think, you know, it's just like, we can watch, you can either complain or you can just like ignore it, you know. That's what you got to do. You can't feed into the as reality transurfing calls, which is, it's been in a backpack for 3 years. So I mean, or on and off for 3 years. What they call pendulums, you know. You can't feed it because it'll make it bigger. So that's about all.